interest rates have changed. The market has cooled. And a lot of people are asking, is it now still a good time to buy real estate in Germany? Well, here's the good news. Opportunity hasn't disappeared. It's just changed shape. In this video, we will explore why now could be the excellent time to buy for the right kind of investor, how current prices and less competition might actually work in your favor, and what makes Germany so special as a location. Stick around to the end and I will share my personal take and what I would do if I were buying real estate right now. Let's get into it. So, first of all, we need to distinguish between, let's call it home ownership. So homeowner, and let's say real estate as an investment. So if you rent out a property. So first of all, when it comes to investment property, it's not that interest rate sensitive because interest rate is fully tax deductible. So let's assume in both cases we have 4% interest. But if you rent out the property, interest is fully tax deductible. So you would receive, for example, 42% back with your tax declaration. So you're actually paying 2.3 something as a net interest. If you are paying 2.3% interest after taxes, well, it's actually not that much. On the other side, well, if we have not that much pressure on the market currently, because many people say, yeah, interest rate is too high, let's wait. You have more negotiation potential and you have more time to consider a property. So especially when it comes to a house purchase that you use yourself with your family, for example, well, then you have huge negotiation potential currently. Negotiation. Which is great. Now it's obviously important to know how do you negotiate the property, what can you say regarding the building fabric, roof, walls, electricity, heating. This is something you should know, or maybe you search for some guidance there. But this is really interesting because currently, if we are talking about houses, I would say probably you can negotiate around 10 to 15%. Because there is not that much pressure on the market. And if you buy a property with like 10% less value or price, well, even if you have higher interest rates, it still might make sense at that point because you also only fix the interest rate, for example, for 10 years. So what will happen if the prices grow long term, which is the case, but interest will be reduced, plus you buy on a lower price. Well, in that case, it's a really good investment. Makes sense, right? So this is really interesting from a home ownership perspective. Probably if we would have lower interest rates, as an example, typically there are bidding wars and someone is saying I'm paying even more and another one is saying I'm paying even more. And then you have probably a plus 10 to 20%, depends on the location, because someone else is willing to pay a higher price. On top of that, well, typically if we're talking about real estate, you have to be super fast. You see a proposal on, let's say, Immobilien Scout. You see the proposal and more or less 7 days later, you have to tell them, I buy the property for sure. I have financing ready, I have everything ready. And then it's difficult, especially for expats, because you probably prefer to have some time to look at the property, maybe to check. But in these market environments, you don't have that time. And especially people will say, I'm ready. I can go for it immediately. I'm even willing to pay a higher price. Okay? So that's for home ownership. Actually makes sense and always obviously depends on the deal itself. But in general, I wouldn't say real estate currently also from home ownership perspective is not interesting. It just depends on the deal itself. Okay? When we talk about the investments that you buy real estate and you rent it out, well, let me now show you something special in Germany. And compared to other countries, 4% is actually really low. If you look at the UK or US, for example, there are significantly higher interest rates. So we have 4%, 2.3. Let's say the scenario is as follows. You have 900 euros rent. and you have 1,000 euros of costs to buy the property, including mortgage, maintenance, management, so all the costs are included. So you invest 100 euros out of your own pocket. Now, let's assume the property has a value of 200,000 and you need to invest, let's make it easy, 7% for buying tax and notary fee. So you invest 14,000 euros out of your own pocket. Okay? Now what happens? After 3 years, you can increase the rent by 15 to 20%. Also, let's make it easy, even if it might be more. You have 1,000 euros rent now. You still have 1,000 euros costs. Is this possible? Let's see. Okay, so you have 1,000 euros income minus 1,000 euros costs. They remain the same. So you don't pay anything out of your own pocket anymore. If you have watched my videos, you probably know this calculation already, but let me explain something. We have 100 euros that we need to invest here. 100 euros, we invest them over 12 years, over 12 months and 3 years. So 3,600 in total over 3 years to cover all the expenses. Now you invest 14,000 euros initially. So you have an own investment of 17,600 to create a value of 200,000 euros. In worst case scenario, because this is calculated without any appreciation at all, prices remain the same. So worst case, prices remain the same. And you only invest 100 euros over 3 years. And we only increase the rent once, okay? Over the next, let's say 25 years, you only increase the rent once, no appreciation at all. You have 10x profit tax-free, okay? In worst case scenario. And if people ask me, well, does it still make sense? Because what about appreciation? Market is cooling, higher interest rates, and so on. Well, in the end, the only question is, with an investment, how much money do you make over a certain time with a certain risk appetite? Okay? So even if prices drop, let's call it, it's after 10 years, 180. Well, it still makes sense. It's still factor 10x tax-free, you know? And I don't know that many investments where you can invest 17,600 and you have, in the worst case scenario, or in a really, really bad scenario, you have factor 10x. I don't know. If you invest 17,600 in the stock market and you have 10% profit per year, you don't reach 200,000 euros over 20, 25 years. Okay? Which doesn't mean that the stock market is bad. Okay? But real estate is stronger from return perspective, at least. So if we now know that we have 10x in worst case scenario, and inflation rate over the last 80 years in Germany was 2% per year on average. So if we would now include 2% inflation over the next 25 years, well, we probably talk about 500,000 or something like that in value, and this is not even considered here. So if someone asks me, well, is it now a good time? I would say 100%, because the big benefit of Germany is that you can invest low equity capital. The tenant is paying back 90% of the mortgage, including tax benefits. So you have factor 10x. There is no single reason, in my opinion, to wait. So what do I do myself? Well, I don't care what's happening in the market, because if I know I have factor 10x in worst case scenario, I just do it as often as you can. So while people are waiting for the perfect deal and something like that, well, I just keep buying, and in the end, I will have significantly higher profits. Because let's think it through together. Now let's say person A versus person B, okay? Person A with higher interest, current situation, buys the first property, okay? So let's say profit after 10 years, on average, I would say 100,000 euros if you sell the property, just so we have easy numbers, okay? And now this person is doing this over the next 3 years. So 100,000 euros profit in the current situation, 100,000 euros profit after 10 years, Okay? So let's say after 13 years, 300,000 euros profit, tax-free. And now we have person B, and this person says, well, I'm waiting for the perfect deal. I want to have really low prices. I would like to have nice interest rate. I would like to find a unicorn. And if I invest in real estate, then this investment should be perfect. I would like to have positive cash flow upfront. I would like to have this and that, okay? And let's say this person B waits until this person finds such a deal, and it might take 2 years. So 0 profit in year 1, and maybe, even if it's a good deal, 180,000 euros profit after 10 years. And this would be a crazy deal, okay? So let's say 180,000 euros profit, and in the 3rd year, the person says, well, I don't find anything which matches my criteria. Now, political situation is not that clear, economic situation is not that clear, and so on and so forth. So in the end, this person earns 180,000 euros with one really great deal. Does that make any sense? So in the end, this is opportunity cost. This person, at least in that example, obviously, lost 120,000 euros and thought, I'm super smart. I made such a deal which is significantly better than all the people who bought property last year, for example. Which might be the case. But in the end, the person who is just regularly investing has significantly higher profits. When it comes to home ownership, I would say, now it's more interest sensitive. There is no tax deductibility, so I would be at least careful in the current situation, which doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. You should just be careful, okay, to see what's the real value. Can I negotiate properly? Can I have good financing because I negotiated well and the bank says, yeah, okay, now the value is higher than the mortgage, so we are happy to give you better conditions. You maybe can include some KfW, for example, if you renovate in a certain way, so you might have 2% interest on KfW. This is all possible, don't get me wrong. But what I want to say is, it doesn't necessarily mean in the current situation that you shouldn't invest in property, especially if we are talking about real estate as an investment, because you have factor 10x in worst case scenario. So I keep buying. A large portfolio beats waiting on the sidelines every single time. Most people hesitate, try to time the market, and end up losing money because of it. Here's the truth. Real estate in Germany still makes a lot of sense if you know what to look for. In a quieter market, smart buyers have more negotiating power, more time to think, and better chances of finding real value. And that's a huge advantage. If you found this video helpful, give it a like, hit subscribe for more insights on property and investing, and drop a comment. What's your biggest question about buying in today's market? Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.